Good morning. Welcome to the Thursday edition of the NBA Betting Show. With me, as always, is Mike L, Matt M. I'm Mike G. We're going to start with a quick look ahead to see some possible things that are brewing for today, then a recap. Then we've got a couple of interesting specific situations to talk about. Matt, what are we looking at as possibilities for today?
Yeah, we're waiting on some rest and some injuries. So I have this up right now. Charlotte, we need LaMelo Ball to play. And then we've got potential rest in Brooklyn for Kyrie Irving, Ben Simmons, possibly others. So we'll get into that too. Donovan Mitchell is listed here, but he is almost certainly not playing. So that honestly is not going to need to be much of a breakdown. Like it's priced for him out, and he's almost certainly out. And that's really it for now. There's probably some other situations we can get into a little bit, but those are the main ones. So before we go there, let's talk a little bit about yesterday. Yeah, here we go. Yesterday's. I think yesterday was pretty good. The thing that the first game of the day went wrong in a pretty annoying way with the Sixers getting backdoor covered by the Nets. So we had talked about Embiid yesterday morning, and it was going to be a bet if he played on Philly, and it was going to be a bet on Brooklyn if he didn't play. And around 4 p.m., there was a report from ESPN that Embiid was probably going to play from Ramona Shelburne, who was like on a segment on ESPN. Weird place for news to come from, but I tweeted at the time, like, I wasn't sure what this meant, like, this was real information.
I have an opinion on that.
Yeah.
So I watched that clip, and, like, I think that one, my heart said it was a little bit more, she was kind of shooting from the hip.
Yeah.
Like, she was making it sound like, what do you mean he's going to miss this game? He's definitely not going to miss this game because of whatever reasons. And then so I also didn't know what to make of that. But then I started thinking a little bit, maybe this was part of the plan the whole time. They both sat the previous game, which was 2 days rest. And we also, I think those weren't fully expected. I'm kind of rusty on that. It's been since Sunday, but it kind of made sense for them both to rest that Sacramento game, which they ended up winning without their two stars. Yeah. So the stars were more likely to play this game because obviously this game probably meant something to Embiid. So I even though like it was a bullish statement, I was having trouble gaining confidence from that.
Yeah, the thing that was weird was the day before Doc Rivers said he wasn't sure if Embiid was going to play, but as we had mentioned, Doc Rivers doesn't like to tell the truth about his players, and that just made this one more
Doc
difficult.
Rivers is just like a bad poker player.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, he kind of, I wasn't fooled by him, but I was holding off because he was so confusing. But the thing,
yeah. I think Dr. What was it? Doc Rivers just like a bad coach. Is that what he
said? Same idea.
Yeah, pretty much. The thing to take from this for future reference, though, if you were watching the unabated odds screen, and I'll just pull this up again, the lines were at 5, and a lot of them started shifting to 5.5 and 6. And a lot of the time, I think more so with the star player, because I guess they have so many contacts around the league, someone is going to know with some amount of certainty that the guy is in or out before we know. And watching the way that the betting markets move can tip you off as far as if the guys are going to play or not. So when the Sixers moved from 5 to 5.5 and to 6, I just grabbed up whatever -5s were still available. And then at that point, if he gets ruled out, you can just bet the +6 back the other way. You get a cash out maybe for a slight profit. You're setting yourself up where there's less downside. You're in a better position. So one of the ways to play this is watch the lines move. The unabated odds screen is really, really good for this. And just as the line starts to move, you can just use that as an indicator of whether someone will play or not. This has been it's been a really important way to tell if LeBron is going to play. I think Embiid is in the same category. On the other side, though, the Jokic line movements have not been so telling.
What do you mean? I was actually going to interrupt you and say the Jokic one from the other day did do that. It was sitting at 1 for a very long time. Then all of a sudden they moved to 1.5. A couple books took it off the board. There was certainly something going on.
That one was actually there was actually news that had happened though. Michael Malone was giving a pregame press conference while that was going on.
Fair.
But I was thinking of the Pacer game where we saw the line go from 7 to 10 to 7, back to 10, and then back down to 7, something like that. It was a lot of movements. And in that one, I think maybe it just was we really weren't sure if Jokic was going to play. Like, no one knew. It was just all speculation. But with the Embiid yesterday, I think everyone it was known somewhere. Like the Sixers probably knew the whole day that Embiid was playing. They just weren't really telling anybody. I think the team knew. Whereas in that Jokic example, I don't think the team had any idea. They were actually going to see how he was feeling. So these can be very complicated. I wouldn't say like just because the line moved from 5 to 6, he's 100% in, but it is an indicator. So to use that as
the market is telling you what it thinks.
Yeah, the market is shading a bit because it's a little bit more sure that he's in. And the only thing that we had going on news-wise, and this is where it can also get complicated, is you have multiple players on the injury report. But fortunately for this game, it was just Embiid. He was the only player we were watching in that game. The bad part about this game was Philly won by 4. So the line went from 5 all the way to 7.5 at tip-off. And the Sixers had a lead of like 15-plus points late in the third quarter. And then Kyrie was really good in the fourth, and the Nets came back and cut it to 4. So results-wise, not a good game, but I think process-wise, if you bet Philly at -5 or maybe 5.5, maybe 6, I think we projected it 7.7. So up to -6, it at least wasn't bad. It wasn't a huge bet even at -5 though. Like this was for me, it was a 3/4 unit bet at -5 that ended up losing by 1. So that was the bad one from yesterday. There were a few good ones, though. Milwaukee, I hope people had listened to what I'd said the prior night, so now 2 nights ago, because the tweet I put out Tuesday night was that I didn't think Murray was going to play, and there was enough upside of a potential Jokic rest. Even though I thought he would probably play, there was enough upside with him possibly resting that you should just make the bet now. And at the time, the number was like -6.5 or -7. When we got him downgraded to questionable, the number was already 7.5 or 8. I hope people got 7.5. At least at 8, you didn't get burned. But then when he got ruled out, the line was 10, and I actually bet more at 10 also. So this game could have gone better because they only won by 8. But the under came in pretty easily, and Jokic and Murray both getting ruled out was enough for an under bet. Like, we didn't talk about this much, but Jokic has a disproportionate effect on offense more than defense. So anytime Jokic gets downgraded, you're going to want to look at the under for the game too. Yeah, unfortunately, they only won by 8. Winning by 11 would have been a lot better, but I think we played this one pretty well.
When you bet it at -10, what was the fair line?
We were projecting it to be a little above 13 if everyone besides Bones Highland was out. And that is what happened, yeah. So when the game started, the line was 12.5. Our projection was 13.4.
Got it. Okay.
And at the time he got rolled out, the line was 10. So even if you had bet nothing up to that point, 10 was a good bet. There probably are some people who only bet it at 10, and that's just kind of unfortunate because, yeah, like the closing line was 12.5. 10 was still a good bet, but the earlier bets actually won or pushed, but the 10 ended up a loser because this game came in right around that middle number. But hopefully more Jokic questionable games because these create a lot of opportunity, and we went 0-4 on Jokic uncertainty, and now I'm going to call this one a tie, honestly, because I don't think most people got the overnight line. I think most people probably didn't only bet at -10 either. -8 was the consensus line when he got initially downgraded to questionable. So I'll call this one a push, but we're 1-0-1 on the last 2 Jokic games after going 0-4. So at least I think this is a positive turn. He probably will play their next game, though, because they don't play until Saturday in Philly. So Jokic versus Embiid, I feel like he's going to care a bit about that one. And this was a true rest game for him, I think. They played the other night in New Orleans, and he was exhausted. Like, I don't think he's still injured. I think he was just resting. So we should get to see Jokic versus Embiid.
I assume Jokic cares. You know who really cares? It's the Denver fans.
Oh, yeah.
You ever want to get a good laugh? People make fun of Sixers fans, and rightfully so most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But watch the Denver commentary anytime Jokic versus Embiid MVP is discussed. You would think that, like, Jokic has never been to the free throw line, and Embiid spends his entire time, which maybe he does. But it's that the Denver fan base is offended that Embiid is in the same breath as Jokic.
I think the Denver fan base versus Philly fan base rivalry that has started, it's probably more on the Denver side. I think I agree with you. But there is a rivalry going
on this side. Philadelphia fans don't care about Denver fans.
I think maybe it's just Embiid fans versus Jokic fans. A lot of the Embiid MVP people may not even be Sixers fans. They just like Embiid for MVP. There's an MVP rivalry happening.
There is, yeah. I'll give you that.
Okay.
I'll give you that. Yeah, I think, like I said, as a Sixers fan, I just find the Denver commentary hilarious.
Yeah. No, fair
I
enough.
think Embiid went 12 for 12 from the line last night.
Could be. I didn't see the stats, but I mean, he's a good free throw shooter. He gets there a lot, 12s. You know, he's averaging. Last I saw, he has a chance to average double digits free throw attempts, which has not happened except for just a couple times.
What percentage of Embiid's foul calls do you think he deserves? Is that a leading question? It kind of.
Yeah, I'll go between half and three quarters. Probably. Okay,
I thought you'd say higher. That's a pretty reasonable. Yeah, you're a very reasonable fan. That's not much bias in that answer. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, no, I as a Sixers fan, of course, I'm a fan, but I don't like the flopping. I prefer he not do it. I'd also prefer not fall down 100 times a game, but I've given up.
Yeah, every time he falls, he looks like he breaks everything.
Yes. So, yeah. All right, so let's move on.
Okay. I'm putting this tweet on screen now. Before we get to these two games, I decided I was going to mess with some people yesterday, but I really do think this was true because we had two bets yesterday. We didn't really have a bet on Toronto. It was like right on the fringe. We certainly had a bet on the Hawks, though. That was one we talked about on the show. But the public betting on these two teams was so extreme. And these are everyone's two favorite teams right now. The Thunder had won like 6 of 8 coming in. The Kings have been everyone's favorite team the entire year, basically, since like game 7 or 8 or something. And I just know that this was like the money line parlay, or people were just betting these individually because of their opponents too. The Thunder were playing the Hawks, who no one likes, and the Kings were playing the Raptors, who also no one likes. Like this was the perfect mismatch of public versus like underperforming team. And we had the Hawks projected -4 in OKC. The line was like -1. We had the Raptors projected like +2 and the line was 3.5. So it was a borderline bet. But the Hawks are better than the Thunder by a significant amount. Like we have Isaiah Joe with a 2.5 player rating. So if anything, we're overrating this team. Like no one thinks Isaiah Joe is that good. I think he should be in the 3-point contest.
Hold on.
Okay. No, I mean, besides us, I know.
No one except the guy over your right shoulder.
I mean us, besides us, not just me. I know we're all in on Isaiah Joe, especially you. You more than me, probably. So we have OKC rated pretty well as a team now. Atlanta is just better. And Toronto has a team rating that is 4 points higher than Sacramento. So even though they were on the road, there's enough of a gap.
I think that Toronto might be the most overperforming versus underperforming team based on expectations. It's like, I still am kind of mind boggled at how poorly this Toronto team has played, considering how good all their individual pieces are. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those teams that isn't going to get that much better in the playoffs because they can't play their starters much more minutes than they get.
They can trade, though. So, they could make a deal. But the current version of the Raptors can't really do much better. Otto Porter is also going to be done for the season. That was like one potential guy that could help them. So they probably will need to make a trade if they actually want to contend for a championship. I don't think they're going to do that. But they are better than Sacramento, just presently constructed. Almost no one would agree with that. The Kings are like 10 games up on them in the standings. So I hope there are more matchups like this. Sometimes we get our edge from there just being news and we're reacting to news and it's all player based. And then occasionally we have bets where the public is just crazy and we don't even need news to create value. And that was the case for both of these. So it was probably a bad day for everyone who likes these two teams. But yeah, the Raptors have been the most injured team in the NBA this year, probably. The Kings have been the least injured team. Sabonis missed 1 game and he's playing fine. That's it. Really.
So what were the results? Were these? Okay. I know you said they were close. One was a bet. One was close to a bet. Did you bet both of these? Or just one?
The Hawks was like a little bit less than a unit. We had almost a 3-point edge on them. So this one was a win. And then the Raptors, I think I ended up with like a 1/4 unit bet on them. For futures, this was pretty big because the Suns, I think actually I'm going to put them as divisional favorites. I do think that they've surpassed Sacramento. And I also think Golden State, who that wouldn't be a bad outcome either if the Warriors end up winning the division, because we've gotten enough in on them, I think, too. So, yeah, this was only a very small win on the Raptors game for me. We didn't really talk about this one, but we were projecting it at 2 and the line was 3.5. So it was like right on that cutoff point. But the Hawks game was certainly a win. Like, that was one we spent a decent amount of time on.
All right, so you're saying you think Suns are favorites. I haven't checked the overnight lines. What does Bet Rivers have them as for the division?
I'll give like market consensus, because I was checking before the show like what they were at a few different books.
Yeah.
The Kings are around plus 150. The Warriors are like 225, and the Suns are like 325.
Sure.
I think that those odds should basically all be around 225, with the Suns maybe closer to 200. So I'll give Phoenix like 32%, Golden State 30%, Sacramento honestly only like 25 now. I think they are a little bit behind. Yeah. And the Clippers are not dead.
You want any Suns 375 on Bet Online?
I mean, I've been betting the Suns. The Suns were at 480 a few days ago, and then they won that game against the Grizzlies. That was really when I bet a bunch on, like, I think that was the moment. I tweeted it at that point too when it was happening. The game was at halftime. Phoenix was up 27, and I tweeted Suns should probably be the divisional favorites. They were plus 480 on FanDuel in that moment. So I'm personally not adding more right now, but I think that is certainly a plus EV bet. So anyone who doesn't have a Phoenix division bet, I would bet it now. But they have a game tonight. Like, you can wait to see if they win again if you want to do that, because as we've talked about, specifically at Bet Rivers, the lines don't move until the next day. So whatever line you're looking at right now, it probably won't change until 2 in the morning. You can wait to see another game. We did get an update on Devin Booker yesterday. He's probably going to be back in 1.5 to 2 weeks. That's kind of what it sounded like. Like, they said reevaluate in a week, but the indication is that he's only a little bit more than a week away. And the Kings play the Suns 3 more times this year, but their next meeting isn't until 3 weeks from now. The Suns should be healthy by then. And that game also is going to be after the trade deadline, so Phoenix may have made additional upgrades by that point too. And then in the season series, the Suns already beat Sacramento on the road, so they've got 3 remaining games. The Suns are likely to have the tiebreaker if they win 2 of the remaining 3, which I think they should be able to do that if they're healthy. So, yeah, this is it's still a good buy low opportunity on Phoenix for futures. And in the Western Conference, I think we want to wait till after the deadline to bet them to make the finals, because I think they're still a bit behind Memphis and Denver if they don't upgrade their roster in some way. But if they do, their odds are actually longer than those teams. Like, I think they're a significant amount longer than those teams. Let's not sidetrack too much and go into that now, because I know we're going to cover futures to a pretty large degree at some point in the next week or two. But, yeah, Phoenix, keeping an eye on them for sure, but I think division bets are good right now.
Yeah, Bet Online changed it to 350 as I tried to bet it. So
are they listening? That's pretty cool. Or they just...
or they're reacting to my bets, one or the other.
Yeah, it could be that. So the Warriors did win last night. We did have a bet on Memphis. It was not.
I had a question about this one.
Yeah, so it wasn't one that we talked about. Wiggins was a late downgrade.
I responded to Wiggins' Q tag, got a 3.5.
Yep.
I was kind of winging it there, but that felt like
right play. It's exactly what I did, because
I think
a late downgrade to questionable. It was a late downgrade to questionable for a non-COVID illness 2 hours before the game. Those guys don't play. It's so late in the day, and he's sick. Like, why would...
There was small value on Memphis without that. I want to say it was like 1.4 points of value before the news, so I happened to be aware of that, and I thought that was enough to push it into a small bet territory. I think it ended up covering, but...
it barely covered because Jordan Poole made a shot at the buzzer. This was a really weird game, but in terms of the line, it was 3.5, like you said. 2.1 was the projection, and our projection moved to 0.9 without Wiggins, so our edge was 2.6.
Cool.
Yeah. So pretty solid bet. Yeah, this was like a 3/4 unit bet for me. Jordan Poole made a shot at the buzzer. Memphis was actually winning this game by 11 points with 5 minutes left, blew the lead. The game ended up tied, and then the Warriors scored with like a second left. So it worked out if you just bet the points. Yeah, this game was good. The game that was not good yesterday, but we don't have to spend much time on it because we didn't bet it, but Utah for playoffs. kind of wanted this win in Portland.
I mean, look at Dame's stat line.
Yeah, Dame has been so good lately. It would be really great if they trade him, but I don't think it's probably not happening.
No.
He's scored 50 or more like 3 times this month already, I think.
Yeah, he's getting after it.
Dame's player rating, I think, is higher than Giannis's player rating now.
Whoa.
Yeah. I think Dame is number 4 or 5 in the NBA. I think it's Jokic, Luka. I want to say Embiid, Curry, then Dame. I'm pretty sure that's the current 538 top 5.
Surprises me a little bit, but not too much, I guess.
Yeah, that's the top 5. Jokic, Doncic, Embiid, Curry, Dame. But Giannis is right there. He's like just below. Paul George is just below. Kyrie and Durant, they're all like right there, but Lillard has a slightly higher rating now. I mean, look at the numbers he's putting up. I think it is justified.
What's his defensive rating?
He's playing better.
He can score 60 points on the ridiculously low number of shots. Maybe it doesn't matter, but he's not doing that every night. So is it that he's become at least? Is he even a plus defender?
No, but he's less negative. So he's worth negative 1.7 on defense. And from dunksandthrees.com, he's 44th percentile. So he's been passable. He's not good at defense, but he's not doing what Trae Young does.
Yeah, no. The reason I was asking is the Giannis thing surprised me just because Giannis is so strong on both ends. So
Giannis's offense just hasn't been at the efficiency level that he's been in. I mean, Giannis is amazing too. So it's that
we're definitely splitting hairs here, but it's okay to split hairs.
But Giannis's offense is nowhere near where Dame's is right now.
Got it. Just for grins, who are the 3 guys below Giannis? Just to round out
the next 3. I think
Kyrie, Durant.
Paul George is next, so it'd be Giannis 6, Paul George 7. I think it's Kyrie 8, Durant 9. Kyrie's rated higher than Durant right now, but it's very close.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then Alvarado, I guess.
Yeah. I may be missing someone. I think Tatum is right in. Yeah, Alvarado for sure. Tatum is right around there. Morant is right around there. I forget the exact order of those guys.
Alex Caruso.
Yeah. Who was the other one that we're adding lately? I'm trying to remember. There was another new player.
Isaiah Joe. Sorry.
Isaiah Joe and DeLon Wright round out the top.
DeLon Wright. Yep.
Yeah.
All
right. Let's move on. Any other games from yesterday worth discussing?
One more. This one can be pretty brief, but we were basically waiting to see if LeBron would get ruled out for under bets. He didn't get ruled out, but the game went under anyway. So if anyone bet it in advance, that worked out. I had a super small amount on it just in case LeBron was going to be out, but he wound up playing and the game was still low scoring. So this game had a total in the 240s and it came in way below it, even with LeBron playing. So I recommend...
A couple thoughts I have here.
Okay.
So I was largely confident. I was overly confident LeBron was going to be out. I had it more like 85, 90%.
Yeah.
I went ahead and got my bets down in advance. We got a piece of a press conference from a Lakers beat reporter where they were interviewing Popovich before the game. And Popovich basically, in no other terms, basically said, yeah, we're going to double team LeBron every single time he touches the ball. And I don't expect it to work because he's LeBron. He's just going to beat us with backdoor cuts and hitting guys open for threes. But we're double teaming him 100% of the time he touches the ball. I decided to look into LeBron assist props because if the coach is basically telling me we don't want this guy shooting on us and we want to force the ball out of his hands as much as we can. Obviously, LeBron can find open players about as good as anyone in the league. I decided to go off the rails, off the model, and bet in a LeBron assist prop over. I got plus odds on 7.5. So I went ahead and took that. It ended up coming in. It did win. I wonder how lucky that was versus how skillful that was. And I'm not sure, Matt. Do you have an opinion?
I'm not sure either, but I think you can make multiple arguments around this idea because we've had cases this year where we kind of know a player is going to get double teamed more than normal. Jimmy Butler has been the clearest example, like the games where Hero and Bam and Lowry are out. If you watch those games, there are 2 defenders on Butler the entire time. And the assist numbers, There was like one game where it worked out and like two other ones where it didn't. I think the problem is it really depends where the player is being double teamed. So if a guy is getting doubled in the post a lot, I think that's going to create a lot of assists. But like Luka Doncic is the other example.
He gets trapped at half court a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And those will create hockey assists, but they're not actual assists.
Right.
So there's a fine line there of like, what is the ideal thing you want? Because like Trae Young gets a ton of assists when he's not doubled because he beats his defender. There's a help defender coming over and then he just dumps the ball off to somebody. And those are like all his assists. And if LeBron is not doubled, he's going to do a bunch of that too. Or just like traditional pick and roll plays. So I don't have a good answer for this. I do think Anthony Davis playing helps LeBron's assist numbers though.
Sure.
So maybe it's just
he
that.
played 26 minutes. I think that was more than any of us expected.
Yeah, I think, well, Darvin Ham was
at
like,
least me.
Darvin Ham said that we're not going to tell you the minutes restriction because if he goes over it, then we don't want to have to say that he went over it. So he just he was like minutes restriction, but we're not saying how much.
Yeah, I mean, they just played him off the bench, and I think that might have just been it.
Yeah.
I'm curious on that, LeBron. Mike, did you check what his points line was? Because I'm wondering if maybe the either a better play or another play is just betting the points under.
Certainly, whatever his line was, 20 was a winner on the under. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was
I
didn't take a look at that.
LeBron's points props are always 30 or higher.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's been scoring pretty wild lately. So, yeah, it wouldn't have shocked me if the line was 30. And I think you're right. Under might have been pretty sharp there.
Yeah. I have in the past done parlays of these where you have the under on the player's points with his over on assists and vice versa.
Okay, that's really interesting.
It's just every site prices that very differently. That would be getting super into the weeds to like break that down. We may have an example coming up in the next week or two where we're like, okay, we're going to talk about this specifically for this player, but I don't want to go too far into that just as like a general concept because no one can do anything with that right now. But if there's a case where that comes up, like this one might have been one where you talk about that of like, first of all, Davis playing means LeBron scores a little bit less, but it might mean he passes a little bit more. Because those things are negatively correlated to some degree.
Yeah, that's the part of those two stats is they're directly negatively correlated. If you have the ball, you can only get the assist or the points. You can't get both.
Right. Yeah. So maybe a thing to flag for future players. Maybe that would have been a way to play it here. But you're always going to have to be price sensitive, and that's where it gets hard because there are good projections, like statistical projections around the DFS industry, but I don't fully trust any of them. Like we don't model that ourselves. So we're outsourcing that, and I don't really know what like the true price should be for any of these player props. Right. So we're only really talking about player props to a large extent here when something is so extreme because a player is going to be out. But I do think there are other times where it is worth talking about it. It's just in general, those are the ones we're focusing on.
Yep.
All right. I think that covers yesterday, unless you guys have anything else. We can go back to today. Okay.
Yeah, let's look at what the if-thens are for today. We'll just start at the top. Well, we already said Charlotte. So Charlotte's pretty simple. If ball plays, there's a bet.
Yep.
Otherwise, no.
Yeah, and Gordon Hayward is questionable too, but he is not that good. So... yeah, we don't really care about him. I mean, him playing is a little bit better. I'm just checking quickly, though, if there are any player props, just while we're on that note, for Brooklyn or for Cleveland. Nothing yet. So, all right, we'll come back to that with Brooklyn. But, yeah, LaMelo is the key. This line, though, is set at a place where Chicago is so overvalued that even if these guys don't play, we may end up with a bet at a bigger number later. Because we're showing an edge of 4.
Because the line might move, you're saying?
Yeah, we're showing an edge of 4.5 points on Charlotte. LaMelo and Hayward combined are worth less than that. So any additional point that it moves is more edge for us.
Yeah.
The market just is... I mean, we just bet against Chicago with Indiana. The Bulls are just not that good of a team. And Charlotte has a couple important players who are back now. I guess Cody Martin is not playing, but LaMelo matters a decent amount less in a context where Dennis Smith Jr. is available because he actually is a good defender. He's like an average player overall, but when he was out, if LaMelo didn't play, we're looking at like Theo Maledon and James Bouknight, like guys who probably should be in the G League. So it helps that Dennis Smith Jr. is there. But there is some compounding between Ball and Hayward. So if both guys get ruled out, I think you just wait. I'll re-update the sheet, and then we'll see if we have a bet later. We might not, but that's a possibility. But if LaMelo is in, this is a bet regardless of Hayward. Yeah, and it's a pretty big one if both guys play.
Okay. All right, let's move to, looks like nothing in the Boston game.
Yep.
Brooklyn, Detroit, what are we waiting for to potentially do something?
So this line opened at 9, and I really thought about just betting Detroit. We talked about yesterday, this back-to-back for Brooklyn coming off of the Philly game is a pretty strong rest potential, even at home. My hesitation is that this is not a long travel. Like, it's not a long travel spot. Philly to Brooklyn is pretty short. Like, they probably went home after the game. So it's not like they had to get on a plane. I don't think. They probably drove. I think the Nets.
They drove or just took the train.
Yeah, I guess that. Yeah. Yeah, so they're fine in terms of that kind of stuff. But the Nets could decide to play their guys tonight. I don't think this is like a foregone conclusion that they're resting. They're coming off a loss, so I think if they had won last night, they would be significantly more likely to rest tonight. The Nets are in a pretty good place in the Eastern Conference standings, but they haven't by any stretch solidified a top 6 spot. I mean, the difference between Brooklyn and the Knicks, who are in 7th right now, is only 3.5 games. And then the Hawks are around the same place. Like, the Nets should be in the top 6, but it's not 100%. I think they're not just giving away games for no reason. So if Kyrie and Simmons feel good today, I think they'll play. I think if they feel all right, they'll play. But if they both wake up tired, or one of them or whatever, there is rest potential. So they're not on the injury report. I have them here just for like the standard questionable for rest thing. If they're both out, we definitely have a Detroit bet. If they're both in, we have a Brooklyn bet. And it's really mostly Kyrie, because Simmons, I can scroll over here.
Simmons also only played 28 minutes last night. Like,
he doesn't
it
play.
May have been an emotional game, but he was in foul trouble, and he definitely got some extra rest that he might not have otherwise.
I don't know that he normally plays that much more than that. I'm just checking. His minutes are not super high, I don't think. Like, he's not playing 38. He might be playing low 30s on average. Simmons' last 4 games, 29, 29, 37, 18. There was the game he got ejected. He's anywhere between like 24 and 35 on a typical night. So 28 is like a little low, but it's nothing crazy. He could still sit today after 28. And Kyrie played 38 last night. So we certainly care more about Kyrie. In this context, Simmons is only worth like a point anyway. But there is some compounding if both of them are out. So even though the line has already moved towards Detroit from +9 to +7.5, if both of these guys are out, it's still a bet. Like, we would have it something like 4. Yeah, we'd have the fair line at like 4 if both of them are out. If just Kyrie is out, though, we only have it at 6. And that's probably, like, it's fringe. Like, you can bet
I'm
that.
seeing 7.5s and 7s right now, so it's almost like they're Kyrie's fully priced out from our perspective.
No, I think they're both half priced out. I think that's more where it is. Yeah. I think the market has them both 50-50. So that's why this one is just wait. Yeah.
It actually seems like our bet is going to be on the Nets if they play.
Yeah, I think
more than because we missed the 9.
No, it's about the same. It's a 1-unit bet on Brooklyn if they both play. It's a 1-unit bet on Detroit if they're both out. If just Kyrie is out, it's probably a small bet on Detroit, like a half unit. If just Simmons is out, it's like a half unit on Brooklyn. Because just Simmons being out, we still have some Nets value.
Yep.
The other thing, though, is if player props show up, because these guys are not formally listed anywhere, so we may get player props at some point before we get an update. There's enough of a chance that these guys don't play that if we see a TJ Warren prop or a Seth Curry prop, Curry could rest too, but if one of his props shows up, I mean, worst case, it's void. Those guys could get an extreme bump in usage if Kyrie is not available. So for Warren, like he only played, I think he had pretty low minutes last night. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
I didn't even see him play.
Yeah, TJ Warren
played 9 minutes.
He played 9 minutes last night. Yeah. And TJ Warren, the last time Kyrie sat, played 24 minutes in San Antonio and took 13 shots and scored 19 points. Like, TJ Warren could be posted with a points prop of 7 or 8 points or something.
Right.
So
yeah, if
that
we
would
find
be,
that, we definitely want to attack if Kyrie's out.
Yeah, those bets were really good for that San Antonio game, if anyone got them, because the Kyrie downgrade came out of nowhere. This one, though, I think the market is aware enough that they won't post it. But if they do, anything single digits for points for TJ Warren is really, really good.
It just takes one book to make that mistake.
Yeah. So I think the cutoff point is anything, let's call it 10.5 points or lower for TJ Warren, or a PRA that, aligns with that. So I guess like 15 or 16 or something. Any line that's around there or lower for Warren, if I see it, I'm betting it even before we get news. Because I think there's enough of a probability. There's so much upside for a bet like that. For Seth Curry, it would be probably around the same range. Like anything, maybe a little bit higher. Curry probably would have a line around 13.5 or 14.5 in a normal context. So if you see one of those lines, like Seth Curry could be 17 or 18 if Kyrie is out. I think those are the two main guys. Simmons benefits if Kyrie is out, but I think it's pretty unlikely that only Kyrie is out. I think if Irving sits, I think Simmons is also sitting.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right.
So Warren, Curry, if I see them, I'll post them. If anyone else sees them and wants to tweet at me about them, yeah, those are the two guys I'm looking at.
All right. So we got some potential props for Brooklyn. And then, like you said, it's pretty straightforward. If both guys are out, it's a Brooklyn bet. I'm sorry. If both guys are in, it's a Brooklyn bet. If both guys are out, it's a Detroit bet.
Yep.
All right, moving on. Anything in the Cleveland game?
Mitchell's not going to play. I don't understand why he's listed questionable. They said yesterday he's probably out multiple games, and then they didn't rule him out.
Got it.
They're playing the Rockets on the like. This is not a game he's going to try to play for. He's going to get ruled out like pretty early in the day. I think he has a 3% chance to play tonight. He's not playing. So the market already is pricing that in. But if a Darius Garland or Karis LeVert prop shows up, someone makes a mistake, like that would certainly be a very strong bet if that happens. I don't see any yet, but to put numbers on those two guys, Garland's points prop would be like 21 or 22 if Mitchell played. It'll be like 26 or 27 without him. So if somehow that 21 or 22 points shows up for Garland, that's a bet immediately because Mitchell is not playing tonight.
Got it.
So I would make the cutoff point 23 or lower for Garland. If you see one of those, bet the over.
I am seeing a points prop for Simmons, Joe Harris, Kyrie, Claxton, and Royce O'Neal.
Which players do they have points props? Joe Harris is one of them?
Ben Simmons, Joe Harris, Kyrie Irving, Nick Claxton, and Royce O'Neal.
So Royce I don't think is affected at all because he's not a high usage player in the slightest. I do think Royce O'Neal assists would go up without those guys. He's just going to have the ball in his hands more, but he's a catch and shoot guy. So Joe Harris is interesting, but what number do we have on him?
Joe Harris is 10.5 at minus 122 for the over.
I don't think that's good enough because his minutes are already high enough. He's not going to get a minutes increase because these guys are out.
Yeah, I don't think Claxton, if anything, I think Claxton potentially has lower points because he doesn't have the best guys at 12 lobs.
If anything, but I think you're right that if anything, it would be lower, but not enough where I would want to bet anything. Yeah, it's they know what is there a Royce O'Neal assist prop that's there?
Let me see here.
Like 3.5 or so for O'Neal.
Royce O'Neal, 3.5 assists, minus 127 on the over.
Yeah, minus 127 isn't great. But I would still bet that if those guys get ruled out, like if you can time that. That's not so good to just bet it right now, but if they're out, I would bet that. Yeah. From YouTube, quick thing, the Cavs are playing tomorrow again. If OKC is a small favorite tomorrow and that line opens where it's like around pick'em or OKC -1 or whatever, I would bet that right away. And it actually kind of looks like that's already available on DraftKings. So let me just go to unabated really quickly. We don't have much more for today, so maybe a quick thing for tomorrow.
Yeah,
It's more relevant. If you can see it on screen, DraftKings opened the Thunder at -1, and we're gonna have the fair line for that more like OKC -3 if the only person for Cleveland that's out is Donovan Mitchell. And I think Mitchell is going to miss like 3 games. So I think he's basically out tomorrow. But then also, Cleveland can certainly rest other players tomorrow on top of that. A back-to-back from Houston to OKC, like these are 2 teams that are relevant to them in the standings.
That's
They're
probably an
Western
easy
Conference
drive,
teams.
right? Or an easy flight, one or the other.
Yeah, it's not the biggest back-to-back, but like if Jared Allen, has a lingering thing that they want to give him a night off, tomorrow makes sense for him not to play. Or Darius Garland maybe because he was dealing with a thumb injury for like a few weeks. But
wouldn't it be more likely that they sit tonight because it's Houston, then let him be rested?
I think in the past that would have been the case, but I think the way that the NBA, like most teams are treating this now, is everyone plays the front end, and then the next day they just figure it out if they can play again. Because I think they want to play both games if possible. So
if they blow Houston out, then they're probably going to play both. Right? If the guys don't get their full set of minutes, then I think that they could play both games.
Right, like if they win by 25 tonight and Garland only plays 28 minutes, that's one thing. If the game goes to overtime tonight, that's a completely different thing. And and I think that's why they don't sit guys on the front end, especially like they can take care of business in 3 quarters and then be totally fine for tomorrow. But this line is set at a point where it's already going to be a value. Like, okay.
And I just want to make sure so it's -1 now. You said you think our fair line would be -3.
Yeah.
So it's 2 points of value.
Yeah, at -105 though, it's a little bit better.
Got it.
Yeah, but this is assuming Mitchell is out tomorrow. I'm pretty sure he's out tomorrow.
Got it.
Like he's almost certainly out tonight, and I think he's 90% going to be out tomorrow also.
Got it.
Yeah. So they're just given all of that, I think this is plus EV given the Mitchell situation, given the upside for more guys to be out. Yeah, and even if they're not, it still looks good.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else for today?
I have a quick YouTube thing. So Raphael says, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with European odds. We have OKC at 1.88 and Cavs at 1.82. Do you think OKC is a good bet?
That's
my response to that is
that's basically pick 'em. Yeah, I know that conversion a little bit.
It looks like OKC is a slight dog in this matchup, so that's going to be better than the -1 we're seeing on the American odds. So I think that is as good. That's the same kind of bet or equally good as what we're offering at -1. I think that's fine.
I think that's like -107 money line or something. It's like marginally better because this would be -110 money line.
Right.
Yeah, it's close enough. It's a very similar line, but if anything, it's
obviously anything that we're projecting a full day away, it's possible that it gets worse and doesn't break the way we're planning. But there's a lot of reasons to think that OKC as very slight dogs or even money is a good bet.
Yeah, I think for sure. Fine. Yeah, I think the market for tomorrow is pricing in a chance of Mitchell playing, and they shouldn't be. I think that's why this line is off.
Yep, I think that's fair.
Okay, so not much else for today. We have small value on Dallas. 2.2 points, but across a 0. We're looking for the game to end on 1 or like 1 the other way. I'm gonna wait to see if we can get a +2 before betting this.
Okay.
Plus money on the money line though. I think I would go a little bit. So sometimes you'll get a +105 connected to a +1.5 on the spread. If you see +105 on the money line, I think it's worth getting in some now. +100, I'd probably wait for a bit higher. This is like right on the borderline. Dallas probably will be a bet at some point today, but just not yet.
Okay.
We like Dallas a lot without Christian Wood, and I don't want to do that whole thing again. Dallas rates well. And then the last one is the Clippers are not listing anyone on the injury report tonight. It could change, but I think that they're playing all their guys, besides maybe Marcus Morris, who doesn't matter. But the Spurs are on a back-to-back, so there's not really a bet right now, but if we get Pirtle, it's really just Pirtle. If he's out, then even laying the 12.5 would be good. So I wrote possible rest in here. Keldon Johnson is not really good enough to care about. It's Pirtle or Trey Jones. Those are by far the 2 best guys on this team.
Got it.
Yeah. If one of them is
Okay.
out, we have a Clippers bet, even at a big number. Yeah.
Got it.
And
All
I
right.
think
So
that's
we're
everything.
we're waiting on news on a number of different things.
Yep. LaMelo Ball, Hornets, Brooklyn. Donovan Mitchell should be out. That's most of it. Yeah. OKC for tomorrow.
Got it.
That's
All right.
just
And
about
then keep an eye on if some of these props open up that we talked about.
Right.
As always, guys, keep an eye on the Preaching Sense Twitter account. Matt will try to keep us updated as news breaks. _NBA. Always good as well. And I think that's probably it. Tomorrow, we are back same time, same everything. We got the whole gang together.
Yep.
We'll see you at 10:15-ish tomorrow.